What does BreachAware do? Well, we're a cyber analytics company. All we do is look for compromised credentials that sit on the dark web. And that's compromised credentials that are publicly available on the dark web. So what I'll do, I'll take you through one slide to give you some background about why it's important to any organization, whether yourself or whether a third-party supplier or a partner. And then I'll take you through a demo of our service. And it depends what your view is like on cybersecurity. So data plays a really important part within cybersecurity naturally. And cybersecurity is all about three elements, and you cannot get away from this. If you want to argue with me about it, please do. But cybersecurity is about people, process, governance, and technology. People obviously are an inherent challenge within our cybersecurity strategy. And people are always viewed as the weakest link. Sorry to use that old turned out phrase. Governance or process is really important. I think it's the most important bit. It's the most boring bit, but governance, compliance, regulation on controlling the technology that's rolled out, and also making sure that people comply to their company's processes and procedures. That's really important. And technology, of course, is technology. So without people, process, technology in your cybersecurity strategy, if you're missing one link, you're really going to increase your risk. Now, why is stolen data sitting out there on the dark web playing an important part within cybersecurity? Well, we've identified as last year 85,000 terabytes of stolen data that's publicly available. People tend to dismiss it. Oh, yeah, it won't happen to us. Oh, it doesn't matter. I talk to lots of IT organizations that dismiss it. But if you think about the recent Marks and Spencer's incident of which we've all been impacted in the UK, Scattered Spider, the threat group that have encrypted the Marks and Spencer's data, they bypass multi-factor authentication, but the data they source it from is the data from the dark web or data that's not been exposed yet. So if you bear in mind 85,000 terabytes of stolen data that's sitting out there publicly available, that's the data that we report to our clients that your company's been found on a third-party breach, or your data is available, and we notify you. Now, if you consider what is it, 85,000 terabytes? We reckon it's a petabyte now of stolen data out there. Just to consider that a terabyte is 75,000 bits of paper. And if you consider each bit of paper has 600 plain text words on it, that just 1 terabyte is higher than Mount Everest, just to give you some context. Now, another thing that is a big threat, and sorry to sound so negative on the threat strategies, is AI and ransomware. Now, we all hear the marketing companies, apologies, I think we have some AI companies who might be listening to this, that are focused on AI, use AI in their marketing as a business transformation enablement tool in order to improve efficiency, etc. Well, the hackers are way ahead of us on the manipulation of data. So they're using AI or machine learning, like I like to call it, on those 85,000 terabytes of stolen data, so they can focus on spear phishing attacks, focused attacks, brute force attacks. And there's another introduction to the data that's we search for on the dark web, and I'll give you a demo in a minute after service. And these are stealer logs and ULPs. Now, a stealer log, commonly known as an info stealer, this is a big Russian market. It's been going for a couple of years now, and we've been loading stealer logs onto our database for the last couple of years. You do not want to be found on a stealer log. And so an info stealer, same thing, is where your PC's been infected with malware, or your email address has been found with someone on someone's PC with malware. And that data is then sold as a log to the Russian, started off as a Russian auction house. And what's really important, it's not only got plain text passwords or it's got your standard data types. It also has your hardware information, device information. So I'll give you an example. We look after, I've got to watch because this is recorded. We look after some pretty big mining organizations. And you can, when we were reporting Stealer logs, when I was talking to the IT director or the SOC director, they would mention to me that if you're found on a Stealer log, anyone that communicates with that person will most probably come up on another Stealer log in a month's time because it's spreading. So that's what we do. We look for compromised credentials on the dark web, and then we report them to the our client base. And our client base is whether direct companies such as aerospace companies, mining companies, or small retailers to schools in the UK. And or we have managed service providers who provide a portfolio of cybersecurity products, and they use this as an element to monitor the data. So I'm going to now skip on to our our website, and I'm going to blow the website up. And this is our website, breachaware.com. And now we've designed it so it looks like as though you're actually going to a live app. So the top pictorial is just showing that we monitor to up about 170 different data types. A data type is always your email password, but could be anything about your education levels, geolocation, partial credit card, and everything. And we report on that when we find a third-party breach. So it'd be like a company, Network Rail's data has been found on a third-party breach, and then we report that back to Network Rail. We report on a breach and report on the data types. We're pretty transparent. So up to this year, 2025, we've found up to 500 million credentials, so 558 million credentials. We'll report on it every week, and it does surge. There's no forecast. So what tends to happen is when an organization is compromised, that'll then go on and try to be sold on the dark web. If once the criminals have saturated the commercial value of that data, it will then get dumped onto one of the forums for free. Now, every bit of data we find, we have provenance to demonstrate we haven't stolen the data. Stolen data. We haven't bought the data. So it's really important that you stay within the rules, the compliance rules, whether in the UK, Europe, under the GDPR rules, or whether into countless federal US rules like CCPA or Singapore or Australia. Now, on the left-hand side, if I can go away from one thing today that people will use our service as a risk management tool, because this is a risk management tool, you can go onto the breachaware.com scan, and you can type in any domain you want. This service is used in 142 different countries. I don't think I can name that. So we're gonna look at Barclays Bank here. We're gonna pick up Barclays Bank. We're going to scan a domain. So this is the barclays.co.uk domain. We're going to find out how many breaches they've been found on, third-party breaches. This is free, so you can search for anyone. All you have to do is put in their email domain. So barclays.co.uk. Now, you can't go down the fear and certainty doubt route here. You cannot approach what we do as using the FUD philosophy. This just shows you Barclays' footprint of data that's sitting out there. Now, Barclays Bank's has had over 7,000 unique email addresses sitting out there in the dark web. It will be exploited. Now, a lot of those addresses could be ghost employees who have left or moved on. The 7,000 means that you see the number at the top means that one person's been compromised more than once, and this is over a time frame going back to 2007. This just identifies that Barclays have been found in 135 different breaches of which four are sensitive. A sensitive one could be been found on a hacking forum, a narcotics forum, a criminal forum, and we put adult forums on that as well, and dating forums. And you won't be surprised how many people use their work email address, barclays.co.uk, for nefarious reasons. It's just nuts. Now, what's more concerning here is you've got over 60 different data types. A data type could be financial, transactional, usage, and so on. So bear in mind, we monitor to up to hundreds. We monitor to up to 170 different data items within so many data types. That's pretty high. And again, it shows you the number of passwords exposed. Now, when we load up a breach, when we identify a breach, I'm going to go onto our control center. We load it onto the breach index. And I'll go through the commercials later on. In fact, while we're here, our ethos or philosophy to cybersecurity is to provide a service that's an inherent cybersecurity cost, not an expensive cybersecurity add-on cost. So a lot of our client base is education, and a lot of our base is SMEs, and we only charge £25 a month or £1 a month. And I'll go through the two different types of service. But here, this is where we load all our breaches up. So we've got over 8,000 breaches here. We also look at paste bins. That's an online forum, a Surface forum. And we've loaded up to 101 breaches over the last 30 days. Now, when we load a breach up, we'll look up this one coming in, dot lines. We'll provide you some information. And this information will show you what sort of company it is, which is called Dot Lines. It's a technology company. What the registrar is and what the registry is. Now, we usually mention the registrar is because when people's websites get compromised, sometimes they try and take over the website or redirect it. So it's always good to know who the registrar is, because the registrar has an influence on the company. Now, amazingly, on this one, we have quite a lot of data types exposed for this organization. So if your organization's been found, you'll get an email through to say, hi there, Rail Innovation, your domain's been found with these data types, and this is quite a lot. With all these data types, and these are the people exposed. Now, interestingly enough, if you look here, there's no reference article. So what will happen? Our researchers, we've got 2.5 researchers. They will parse the data. They'll find the breach. Parsing the data means that they'll restructure it. They'll look for spoof emails, look for any duplicates, and then they'll strip it out, and then they'll load it. So, for instance, this one's got 109,000 email addresses. What we've noticed when breaches are reported, this one hasn't been reported in the media. No one knows about this. 99% of the breaches we find aren't reported in the media. And also when they are reported in the media, when they make the ZDNet or Bleeping Computers, and it says there's 10 million lines of data, you'll tend to then, if you pass that data, you might only find 2 million email addresses and associated data. What we're finding with ransomware dumps as well, there's a lot of ransomware dumps, where the hacktivists are dumping them. There's a lot of background information. Again, it might say there's 1 terabyte bit of data, but there might only be about 10,000 email addresses and associated data types with that individual. So always read in between the lines when you're looking at a news article of what they say is actually being loaded. But this one, Dot Lines, a Singapore company, technology company with all these sorts of data types. Now I'm just going to come out of this exit full screen, and hopefully I'm going to go into my email, which is still, well, I'm not going to do that then. So what will happen, I was just going to show you what happens when you get a notification. Now, we run 2 types of service. So if Liam was found on this breach, he would get an email through, and it would show you his name and all the data types exposed, and you'd log into the service and you'd run a report, which I'm going to do in a minute. Now that's what you get charged for £25 a month, all the previous data and any new notifications. But with that service, you need consent because you have to comply to the GDPR rules. Now we also run a supply chain service. So if Liam was monitoring someone else's organizations, he would need consent to monitor them within their supply chain. Um, However, if he would need, and that could cause an issue. However, if he just monitors the company name, he does not need consent. So he'll get a notification through saying, "Hi, Liam, your customer, big company's been found in a breach." Will highlight all these data types, but it won't give the individual's name, and we only charge £1 a month for that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually show you the two different types of reports. And we're going to, these are live reports using two charity domains. One's called example.org and one's called example.net. And this is the full service. So now excuses, I live in the middle of nowhere on the Welsh borders and the broadband's not good. So here we have example.org. It's got over 9,000 compromised credentials. Same format, and it's peaking up in 2025. Now, a lot of coders and developers use this service, use this domain to do testing and everything. We do it as well. The difference between the free service and the paid service, you get more data. Now, you could say, I'm not really interested in going back to the 2008. I just want to see what's been loaded over the last 2 years. So I'll just supply date range. And this is what's been loaded since the 8th of August, 2023. Now, interesting enough, there have been breaches loaded over the past few years. What would happen that you'll find, going back to my original point, you'll find that when a hacker has saturated the commercial value of the data breach, they'll dump it. Now they could have held that data for years. So we might find a breach that happened in 2017 and it's just been dumped, but we'll report it within 2025. Interesting enough, Equifax, the famous Equifax breach from 2017, the data was so valuable because the data types, the richness of it, it's only just been released in piecemeal. In fact, this week we just picked up equifax.co.uk because the criminals have maximized the value of that data. Interesting enough, finance data is not the most valuable data. Health data is the most valuable data. Over 50% of the breaches that occur in the States are via the health sector. And why is it more important, particularly in the States? Well, health data is permanent. So you will always have that data to make fraudulent prescriptions and can't take over or ID takeover. But also health data tends to come with finance data. Health data, there's no shut and closed aspect, similar like finance data. The second most valuable data is legal data. So if you imagine you're walking into a sweet shop and the shopkeeper's filtered all your favorite sweets in one bag and says, "Hello, Mr. Alston, here's your favorite sweets." That's like what a hacker does going into a legal firm or an accountant's firm. It's got all that high value, rich favorite data that the hacker likes. Third element, the third most valuable aspect is education data, particularly the primary schools, because hackers like to hide longer with that data until that person comes of age and has a bank account. Tend to find that when a person who's been hacked at school, depending what age, and they come to open up a bank account, their credit score is pretty poor because the hacker's been just using their ID and creating havoc with their credit score even before they've had a bank account. And then the other aspects, finance data. If we get back to the reports, because I slightly digressed there. So this is over the last 2 years for that domain example.org. As we scroll down, we'll then identify the top 5 different data types exposed. We are changing our reports over the next few weeks, and I'm going to give you a preview of our new reports. So just scroll back up here, 48 data types. So here we go. As you scroll down, this is to say we're looking at example.org. It could be any company. We could be looking at Barclays. We could be looking at any of your suppliers. Here we go. And these are the different categories. So you could say, I just want to look at either my domain's technology exposure of data types or my suppliers' exposure. And as you can see, it will highlight account details, device details, historical IMEI numbers, and so on. So you can filter about with anything, and you can just make some like good background risk assessment on the exposed data. Now, what you would do once you found this data, and we'll scroll down, you then take a course of action to make some remedial changes or some risk mitigation plans in order to reduce the risk. As we scroll down, you'll then want to say, where's my company data? What websites have they been found on? And it will then identify it. So you could think, oh, that would make a good report. I could use that for my executive management. Or I just want to know who's been using their work email address, whether it has an impact on my partner's supply chain or whatever. So I'm going to scroll up here and I'm going to print it off. Bob's your uncle. You've got a nice little report showing what websites you've been found on. So obviously this one, example.org, has been found on SteelerLogs. Oh, look, Duolingo. So we're just talking about Duolingo. That's August 2023. So why is my work employee using their work email address to go on Duolingo? So just scrolling down here. A lot of SteelerLogs, amazing amount of SteelerLogs. But it goes on. So you can question whether that person's using their work email address, whether it's relevant to their work or not. As we scroll down, it's going to scroll down again. We then come down to the nitty-gritty, which is the actual people. Now, bear in mind, this is a demo domain. It's a live domain, and we're gonna filter it, and we're gonna looking at John, and we'll go to page 3 or page 2, and here we are, John. So jjohn.smith.example.org, plain text password found on a combo, and email address and passwords exposed. Or if it says it's got unavailable, it means that John123 has got a strong password, but we've been unable to find it. Password's there, but we're unable to hack it. Been found on Apollo. And here we are for another one. Been found on a job site with all the different data types. Tend to find job sites, recruitment sites do have quite a lot. If it's if we can crack the hash, we'll crack the hash. Simple as that. As we go to the top, you can thinking, oh, I want to report that. I'm going to export the data into CSV or Excel spreadsheet. That is all set to change. That's very soon with our new reports, which I'm going to give you a preview of. Now, here we go. I'm now going to show you the £1 service. Now, this came about with our aerospace company as well. They'd been compromised. I won't name them. And the SOC director says, "Hi, Andrew. Look, we've been compromised. Are we able to manage our supply chain?" And this is where we actually started launching the service because we saw a space for it. And so this is where you were just looking at the company name. So for that aerospace company, they loaded their top 60 suppliers on it. And we'll just call this one bulk manufacturer. So they loaded the bulk manufacturer up. Every time the bulk manufacturer comes up in a breach in the States, they get hold of them. What are you doing in order to maintain the integrity of the supply chain? Or did you know that you've been found in this breach? And then they'll act on it. It's just about making sure your whole supply chain is actually um, having the same compliance and standards that you have. So this is the £1 service. Again, very similar to the £25 service, but without the names. You get the notification, you get the emails when you set up, and it has all this information, same redacted information, same as the free demo. As you scroll down, though, you get a bit of background historical data from the as the pie chart. Again, this is changing soon. But for the additional £1, we just go up here, 74 data types. You can then filter or look at the data types and have a conversation with your supply chain or with your partners. You could put in health, if I can spell it right, health. It's got, and you can talk about why have you got drug habits. You got COVID-19 details. There's so many different categories that we've got. Contact data. It enables you to have a conversation, whether internally within your organization or with your supply chain. And then, as before, it then shows you all the websites you've been compromised on. Now, if you wanted to sign up as a client, you can go direct to our website and then you can sign up and just monitor your own domain. If you're an MSP, you can then get access to your dashboard and add clients on. But adding a client on is a real simple process. It's basically go to the partner dashboard or you go onto the monitoring page, which I went on earlier on, and you fill in the information. You've got an option: the confidential service, which is the full service, or the restricted service, which is just looking at the company name. With the confidential service, you have to put in the full name of who the person is monitoring or responsible for that domain. Reason being, they'll get an email and they'll say, "Hi, Liam, BreachAware's monitoring your domain on behalf of blah, blah," or basically confirming we're monitoring your domain. You tick all these boxes because that's within the compliance regulations. Person providing consent has been verified as a domain owner, da 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 da. The person providing consent agrees to use this information for the prevention and detection of crime. So it's basically making sure you're compliant and you know the rules and regulations, because this is all about PI. Now, if you're just looking at the company aspect, so you're just looking at railinnovation.com, you're not looking at Liam at railinnovation.com, you tick on the restricted box, fill in the information, but you don't need consent. But the tick box at the bottom will already be automatically ticked, and it will say the person providing consent agrees to only use the information for the prevention and detection of crime as part of the system of cyber risk management. So as we go on, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you why it's important to look at data and manage it. You might dismiss it. We have lots of organizations that still don't view it as a threat. Now, this is a real life case that I did. Hopefully you can see this example. This is where one of my conversations failed for me to convert them into a customer, but I wanted to demonstrate the impact this has had. So this is a customer called Element. They're a big pharma company. The only reason I can talk about this is because all this data you see here is publicly available. It's in the public realm. So you just need to know where to look, and this is where we come into looking at it. Our researchers look at all the web forums, they look at the online forums, and so on, and they report on it. As I say, provenance and demonstrating you haven't bought the data is really important. So this is a supply chain link I did for one of the guys who lives in a village. I live in a small village, happens to work for Element. So and Element's have been compromised twice this year. So in January, I did a schematic showing the relationship between Element, its partners, and its onward supply chain with Gulfstream Aerospace. Now, in January, they're found with 131 breaches, 1,200 unique accounts were exposed, and 53 data types. Now, I know that reading the Intel forums and speaking to the contact, they've been compromised twice this year. So I ran a report because I was just nosy to see how many compromised credentials they had in December. So if my maths is right, that is a 50% increase from 1,200 compromised unique accounts to 1,800. And I was trying to talk to the team to say, do you think the 50% increase in compromised credentials correlates to you being exposed or compromised, hacked two more times? Now, it's not a case of you saying, well, yes or no. It's a case of let's mitigate that risk. If you can mitigate that risk by 1% by making sure that Andrew who works at Element has invoked MFA, has changed his password, or Andrew at Element is a ghost employee, doesn't have access to the infrastructure, or Andrew, who's been found in Element I'm just making this one up, has been found on a betting website and doesn't have money problems, doesn't have access to intellectual property, doesn't have access to money. It improves the risk factor of that organization. And I was just trying to demonstrate to Element about how it impacts NTS, how it impacts Cobham, how it potentially impacts JMI laboratories, and onwards to Gulfstream Aerospace. But I do know that Gulfstream Aerospace acts every time that a breach comes in. So they're pretty on the ball. Even though they've got a high number, they've taken the time to mitigate the risk and they act on it straight away. So now, when I'm getting nowhere with a client, I'm talking about data because it's all about privacy, protection, risk management. Is I usually quote Voltaire. So my parting gift to Element was the Voltaire quote that uncertainty of that data that's out there in the dark web. Uncertainty gives you hope, but you shouldn't be managing your cybersecurity strategy based on hope. I wasn't very popular. Should we just check? Let's just check while we're here. Remember these numbers: detections 144, unique email accounts 1837. This will take you straight through to a live link. 144 1837, and we'll just see what their position is now. So this is live coming from the BreachAware database, the redacted one. 144. So it's 144. They've been found in 22 more breaches, and 1837. And I haven't got my glasses. Just double check. That is 1867. So we've got 30 more unique email accounts found, 22 more breaches. It just shows you the pandemic of data that's been exposed, and more will be with the ransomware dumps that are occurring. So if I go back to the dashboard, so our service is very intuitive. We've made it so it's quite a simple service to use. So everything that we've got is userguide.breachaware.com can be used quite effectively. So we'll tell you how to domain monitoring, how to edit, run a report, resume reports, and so on. So we've actually made it so it's a SaaS tool with very, very no human interaction. There's one bit of human interaction. If you remember when I told you about this bit, I'm going to go back to breachaware.com. When someone adds a client on, this is the one bit we've learnt, is that when you put the client's name in, saying you're either doing it yourself or you're monitoring your supply chain, or going down to the actual PI level, we will check that that person does exist. We had an example from years ago where an MSP was using our service to profile their potential client base, which is against GDPR rules and brings you the biggest fine under the ICO. Whether the ISO get around to doing it is another thing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to bring you up our new reports, which we're just about to launch. So just bear with me while I change screen. And I'm gonna... So we are actually updating our reports because they need a refresh. And I hope you like this. You're going to be the first organization ever to see this. And it's going to come within the month. These are the screenshots of what we're doing. So I'm going to go back to Zoom, share the screen. Hopefully you can still hear me. Share. Yeah. So this is our new format, open to interpretation. But here we go. So we're actually changing the style and feel because they need a refresh. This will be happening within the month or two. We haven't worked out 4 to 8 weeks. So we're actually showing in a schematic, very similar, but and the language is changing. So say if it's like, we'll pick on Barclays. Say if it's Barclays, they've got 346 breach events. So we're going to get that top line stats out. How many exposed accounts have been found? How much data has been exposed? And how many UMEIDs, unique email addresses, have been exposed? As you scroll down, it will have the same timeline with pop-ups. So you'll get a number there with a time frame. But we're going to break down the top level schematic, showing you the 5 different levels. So how many third-party breaches? Obviously, a third-party breach is where your email domain's been found on a third-party breach. Combo files. Combo file, we hate combo files. They are where hackers, you tend to hackers will collate all my default. Can you still hear me? Can someone put a hand up to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Combo files is where all the hackers have got a number of breaches, old breaches, and it's like a trophy thing, and they collect data and they dump them. And it's kind of meaningless because in a way it could be old information. And the old information you call false positives. It's the key thing about is if you put quality data in, it should get quality out. So we're not great fans of combo files. Infostealers, as I told you earlier on, and also I'll give you a ULP list. I didn't mention what a ULP list is. So what's been happening? I told you about the Russian market on infostealers. There have been some hackers stripping out the data just to look at the plain text passwords, the email addresses, and the websites, and selling them as separate lists. So that's a big one. And then, of course, you've got scraped data. Obviously, if you don't know what scraped data is where hackers are just basically scraping websites, usually spam data. LinkedIn gets scraped a lot. And then you get your plain text pastes, which is basically surface web data for some of the forums. And then we'll highlight how many of these were sensitive websites, where you've been found on a sensitive website, and how many spam lists. As you scroll down, we'll have a new format. So it will show you, this is say if this is your organization, it will show you that Force 24 marketing platform. This one wasn't reported actually. How many data was exposed and how much data was exposed. Look, 602,000 total exposed data. This hasn't made the news. Again, this is a British marketing company, the cowboys of data privacy. They don't care really, do they, marketing companies? And ULPs, again, as you scroll down, we'll then give you this category here. So you can then this is our new reports. You can then take a quick overview of your organization or your partner, and it'll say digital behavior, communication logs, gives an idea, recorded data in the form of sound, blah, blah, blah. But it's that top level information. Also, what we're doing, we're going to align them to the regulatory laws. So, say for instance, Liam comes up in a breach that has a health impact factor. We'll say that your organization's obviously this data could relate to HIPAA. So you make a judgment call what you want to do. And then again, whether it impacts on the global privacy laws. We bundle them all together. So we've got 5 laws. We're looking at PCI compliance, Basel, SOC 2. As we scroll down, we then get down to more data, exposed personal data and ratios. My business partner is a data geek. He did the back-end banking process for Lloyd's, and he also designed a number of back-end processes for a number of the challenger banks in the UK. He's a data geek, so he just loves all this stuff. So it's a pleasure that he's my co-founder and business partner. Then you get down to a list of exposed personal data. So we're changing it slightly. So it's a bit more of a visual aspect. And then as you go down, it then gets down to the list of the nitty gritty, where it will tell you Andrew has been found. These are his passwords, how many breach events, how much exposed data, and then you can just click on it. So those are the new reports we're going to do. It's going to relaunch very soon. You're one of the first organizations to see this. For the free service, if you go to the top, you'll get all that information. What we're also doing for the free service, we're going to allow your organization to sign up. One person can sign up. So Liam can sign up. So just to put Rail Innovation domain on it, for example. And if it does come up in a notification, you'll get a notification say, do you realize your data's been found? And then you can go on and do the redacted report. Obviously, if you want more information, you have to sign up. So I think that's about it. I could go on to the commercials. Here we are, and I'll just increase the page. So the one thing I'm pretty proud about, our free app is used in 142 countries, which is pretty cool. And we have customers on every continent, bar Antarctica, but I'm working on that. My favorite customer is one of our original customers. It's a Chilean utilities consultancy company. It's a bunch of engineers in Chile that go around managing their hydroelectric plants because they got a quite fragile power supply over there. And amazingly, they do come up in breaches because they're independent consultants and they have the work emailer domain. Say if they make a purchase in a hardware store, hardware chain, and that hardware chain gets compromised, they get informed. I just think that's such a great case study. And of course, we look after schools because in the UK, we're quite prevalent in schools in Nottinghamshire, Lancashire, Manchester, South London, Derbyshire. But from a price point of view, it's £25 per month I'm on the wrong page actually. £25 per month if you're a direct user, but if you turn into a partner, you then get discounts. I think we're just talking about direct customers here. But if you wanted to monitor your domain, your supply chain, you can then add on your top 10 or 5 suppliers, and we'll charge you £1 a month. And we pro-rata the bills. In some cases, we don't pro-rata them. What's really interesting, I've seen a real big change in attitude towards cybersecurity. People do kind of still ignore the threat, but I'll give you a great case study. We've signed up the second biggest housing association in the UK. And housing associations obviously provide houses within regions, low-cost houses or rental properties. And I was quite surprised when they loaded up their top 50 suppliers. I won't tell you who they are. And they've been loading up the people who provide the physical security or support functions to those houses. And they, because of the sensitive nature of the people, of the individuals in the housing association, the tenants that they're looking after, they're trying to protect that data. So they're using that to question the supply chain to say, hey guys, you've been found in this breach. And they have a conversation with them about the PI and how they're going to reduce that PI being circulated to other people. But yeah, so I think that's about it. I welcome any questions. Um, and I'm yeah, any questions?
Chris, you got a question? You're on mute there.
Um, oh, am I still on mute?
You're
No,
not
No,
now.
no, you're not now.
no.
You can hear you
Okay,
now.
it's a bit. It seems to be behaving a bit slow. Well, thank you for that presentation. It's a bit mind-boggling, isn't it? So, um, one thing that I was actually interested in is we're developing a product that we want to be a cloud-based product. So, for example, train operating companies their employees would sign up on it and using their email address. Are there any sort of security implications in that?
So the
Would
way
you using a platform like AWS?
No, so we're a SaaS product. So the way customers sign up, so if a railway organization or any organization signs up, there's usually one point of contact who sign up. So it doesn't matter how many employees you got inside that organization, Chris. You could have 10,000 employees or 10 employees, will be the same price, but you still need that one individual to sign up on behalf of the organization. Um, and that way you've got the governance controlled. So when a direct customer signs up, that person is responsible for the governance of that organization. They will get the email to say, "Hi, Chris, someone's been found on this hardware store breach," and they do it like that. Um, what the free service won't stop anyone um, signing up just to monitor their own company's domain. But all they'll do is get the redacted data. So, but it's a real simple process to sign up, either as an individual, as a direct company, or a partner, an MSP, or a consultancy. So, did I answer the question?
In a roundabout way, yes.
Yeah.
I was just I was
So
just
you wouldn't
sorry.
you wouldn't get an individual in the organize any Joe Soap in the like network rail phoning up and saying I want to sign up. We will actually clarify where they're from. So just to double check, because it is a responsibility of that person signing up, because they could get a breach of, say, an individual's been found on a betting or a dating website, and
Yeah.
they could use that for the wrong means. So you tend to find CISOs or IT directors or someone of that governance ilk signing up. Um,
That's the point of contact.
yeah. That's
Okay.
it. That's it. But I mean, the MSP one, that bad example I gave you, where this is why we double check. It still really annoys me because it was a UK company who was putting false information in to say we're monitoring this domain, and just to try and get the data so they could profile our organization and sell to them. That's illegal. But they were making it so the guys, our researchers, or Gabriel and Hugo, were checking to make sure that person existed, but they were making them up. We're using tools such as SendGrid just to double check stuff. So we do it all the time. That's the only manual intervention. Even if you had an AI model to sign up, we'll still check the name. It's important.
Right.
There's a lot. There's a you know there's a lot of organizations that can use data in the wrong sort of way. There's a really simple process to sign up. If you wanted to be a partner, you'd have to sign up a partner agreement, but that doesn't tie you into any thresholds or usage. It just ties you into the billing cycle. So most of our customers are SMEs, and they like to pay monthly. Most of our big companies that sign up, want to pay in one go because maybe they see it that we don't want to do 12 invoices a year because that's going to cost more money anyway. Um, Liam, any
Okay.
questions?
Liam, have you got a question?
I think I can go with Chris that was a bit mind-boggling of trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah, but
digest your.
I don't. It's not mind-boggling. It's just being aware. It's just being
BreachAware.
aware. Yeah, it's just being breach aware. Thank you. It's often dismissed. So I saw um, I'm an ex-SOC director. I used to work for BT. I used to look after all the banks in the city years ago. And I saw the biggest supplier to government, manufacturing supplier. I'm not going to tell you the name. You can check out who they are. They're number one at the moment. And I went to a dinner event and I was talking to the SOC director and I was in my anti-sales mode. And I mentioned, asked me what I did, and I mentioned that their organization had 26,000 compromised credentials. And I was saying, well, look, I'm going to be blunt here. I'm not selling to you, but you've been attacked, you've been exposed, and with that amount of data sitting out there on the dark web, and those amount of data types, the hackers with their AI models will be all over you. So what you need to do maybe is consider auditing that data. But I know as a SOC director that a SOC director has that budget and she's spending all this money on defensive products, not proactive products, and dismiss the data. So it doesn't matter if they're fighting people off. That 26,000 compromised credentials still needs to be audited and will still be, it won't go anywhere. There's no delete button. That's the thing. There's no delete button. So, and I was trying to explain, even if you don't mitigate that 26,000, what you should do is that when it goes to 26,001, you know that Chris Jones from blah blah Care Group, we've got it covered. We've invoked his MFA. He's got caught out in a phishing email. We'll do all the training that we've got within our organization. And even if you're a small company and you don't have the money to do that, being made aware is just it's just a simple thing. You're made aware. You might have 6 employees. Oh, we've just been found out. We've just been informed. It's the way my comparison is like it's a 25 quid a month. What's that? That's a crap cup of coffee from Starbucks with a high saturated fat cake. In fact, it's more than 5 quid. And you save on the calories because you're not going to have it because you're going to use breachware. So,
Okay.
sorry, it's true though, isn't it? If you put that into that context, I'll go without a Starbucks coffee.
So the service you're providing is actually to make companies aware of
Aware,
the breaches,
yeah.
not the mitigation.
No, we do. I have written crib sheets for organizations. So, um, to understand what data means. So when a breach comes in, I've said this is what you need to do. Check if they're a ghost employee. Do your basic MFA passwords. If you want to steal a log, take the PC away from them and clean it. I've done all those crib sheets for them and I hand them out. We're solely for reporting on that your data has been found on a third-party breach. That's it.
Okay.
What we are doing in the future, part of the new reports, we're going to come up with a risk mitigation tool, Chris, and it'll say these are the data types you've been found on. This is what you should do. We recommend, and then we'll put a timeline on it. These are the impact statements, and we'll put a timeline on it. Come back in a month's time. Have you done those things?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that would be very useful.
Yeah. Yeah, people still dismiss it, but the thing is, organizations are slowly realizing that this pool of data is a petabyte. It's got to be a petabyte now, not terabyte. It's shocking. But then again, I look back here. I'm quite pragmatic. I look at it as a risk. Okay, that's a risk. What should we do in order to mitigate it? If you strip out all the emotion of it and just look at it as problem management, oh, we've done that. That's fine. Tick. I've done that. That's fine. I've done my best for our organization to reduce the risk by 0.5%, 1%, 10%. It's a simple problem management approach you've got to use. So I didn't mean to frighten you because I hate going down the FUD route. It's just awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also quite daunting.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be daunting. It's just saying, oh, I've got some data there. Let's just mitigate it. And
Yeah,
anything new comes in. That's it. Simple.
right.
Simple.
That is though, isn't
Right.
it? It is. Hey, I've done some crazy stuff in my job, and I viewed it as everything is simple. Take the emotion out of it. I'm that old, so
Take the emotion out, stop buying coffee, and be breach aware.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I rolled out RIMNet, the radio indicating monitoring network, post Chernobyl for the UK government. And again, that was just assessing the radiation going across going across the UK. But it's all about risk, isn't it? Should I buy Welsh lamb or should I buy Scottish lamb, depending on the flow of the radiation? And you've got to make those judgment calls on what you do. If you view data not as a risk, fine. So I would say about Marks and Spencers, they didn't view data as a risk, and that's fine. That's their strategy.
we must call it there because we've come to the end of our hour. So, Andrew, thank you very much.
Thank you,
How do we
Andrew.
get in touch with you?
Pleasure.
Your website?
Oh yeah, website breachaware.com. Please do follow us on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn. We do some great insight updates every week. It's not overload, it's not jargon, and we're all very personable, anti-establishment sort of corporate approach. It's real life fact stuff we deal with.
Great. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. Bye
Thanks.
then.
Bye.